Brought to you by Hug House Productions. Hi, hello, listener of Never Morphed. If you like this show, I am convinced you are going to love The Newest Olympian by Mike Schubert. Why am I so certain? Because that's one of the shows that inspired this show. Real ones who listen to the credits already know. Each week, Mike dives into the Percy Jackson series, which I love, joined by guests who are longtime fans of the Rick Riordan series. If you haven't read these books yet, this is the perfect way to get started and read along with Mike. They're so good. And like Animorphs, they're kids' books that touch on way more serious topics than you might expect. And they're about worldwide mythologies, starting with Greek and Roman. I know you gays love mythology. If you have already read the books and know how good they are, you'll love this series too. The dramatic irony, man. And if you know about the books from the Disney Plus series, Mike has done interviews and conversations with some of the cast of the show on The Newest Olympian too. Mike is a great host, a great editor, and obviously a huge inspiration for me. You can find The Newest Olympian in the show notes or wherever you get your podcasts. Go subscribe right now and enjoy. Welcome back to another episode of Never Morphed, the podcast where I read all of the Animorphs books for the first time as a whole grown-up adult. And holy shit, this book was so fucking sad and brutal. Oh my god. Buckle in, kids. I'm joined once again by friend Leigh Pfeffer of the podcast History is Gay, which you should go listen to right now. Links in the show notes as always. Leigh was my guest back on books 1 and 2 and is making their triumphant return here for a book that was so bizarre and so insane and so weirdly sad for a book all about happy puppies. And now I have a happy puppy. She's actually like right here in the room with me, but she's very quiet, so I doubt you'll be able to hear her go boo, boo, bow, bow. That's the noises that she makes. That's not what dogs sound like. Hi, good morning. It was very fun listening to me as I was editing, like listening to me from the past, be like, God, I sure would love a dog. And now I have a dog, and I have the dog of all time, and she's baby girl puppy Pastina. As always, if you want to support Nevermorphed and make it easier for me to make this podcast, hop on over and check us a few bucks per month or per thingy at patreon.com/hughousepodz. We've now made it possible for you to buy collections of notes, notes docs, live reactions, and one-off purchases as well on Patreon if you're looking to cut down on monthly subscriptions. Okay, now let's jump into our discussion of Book 11, where we ask the important question, what the fuck do you mean this book is called The Android? Leigh, I'm so happy to have you back to discuss Book 10, which we are literally already doing before I pressed record. Classic this is podcaster shit.
This is kind of what happened the last time I was here as well.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I can't stop talking about these books.
They're so
even when it's just waiting for the most appropriate point.
I fully understand.
Evidenced by me constantly just like texting you and messaging you, like, shut up, wait.
No, but there's all the... I love when you send me memes and shit. They're always so fucking good. And truly, like, I have found myself very often, like, I fool myself into thinking that what I'm about to do in conversation is hype up the fact that I have a podcast, right? Like, people ask me what I do, and then I start talking about these podcasts that I make. But every single time, what happens is I tell them about Never Morphed, and then they go, whoa, really? And then I just talk about
and then you info
for a really long time.
And then you info dump about Animorphs because it is impossible to read these books and not have it become your entire fucking personality.
It's so true.
So you remember?
They're so good.
You remember like half a year ago when we were recording book 1, and I was like, so here's the thing, Will. Your brain is going to be irrevocably altered. And you will never, ever, ever be able to think about birds and thermals the same way. The word thermal will be forever in your brain. You will look up in the sky and you will see birds and you will go, man, I bet they're on a great thermal right now.
Yes. I have found I did not give a shit about birds, really, except for like vultures and corvids until reading these books. And I like birds so much more now.
Yeah. It's not even the birds thing. It's just like somehow like Catherine Applegate and Michael Grant were like, we're going to teach an entire generation of kids about the physics of warm air. Yeah. And it's like, okay. All right.
And we were all like, yeah, and this rules.
We're like, yes, give me more, please.
I think it's worth saying before we jump into this book, about like the very
it's always chaos when we get on mic with each other.
It's so true. So today, the dude who killed the CEO of United Healthcare just got arrested. Yep. Ostensibly, that we know about. Like, we're pretty sure this is the guy. And subsequently, there has been a lot of discussion because this guy, who is unfortunately Italian, I say this because I am an Italian, just to be clear. He is also, like, anti-woke. And there has been a lot of conversation online about, like, oh, we shouldn't have trusted him. Now, just personally speaking, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else here, I think what he did still fucking rules.
Yeah,
I don't give
I'm
a shit. Like,
fine with it.
Dude, thank you. He still fucking killed the guy. Like,
Here's the thing. He may be a sack of shit, Joe Rogan loving, anti-woke, whatever, but like, listen, let them fight. Let them do it. Let them all listen. This to bring it back to Animorphs. This is Visser 1 and Visser 3 going, you bitch, you bitch. And the Animorphs standing back going, I mean, if you guys will do it.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I'll sit back and watch you guys destroy each other. That's fine.
Right, and also, lefties do a lot of talking about killing CEOs and not a lot of killing of CEOs, so...
True.
You know?
Yeah, what a time to be discussing this book.
Because this book specifically...
to be discussing this book, whose central thesis is the role of nonviolence in larger violent systems.
Yes, it's like literally about the push and pull between violent revolution and nonviolent looking for a better future. Like, it is like uncanny.
Yeah.
How directly.
It's almost as if these books are like always relevant and good. Especially Truly. In a world of like never-ending war.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm so glad to have you back. We don't need to do like our little background because you've been here and people know.
I've been here. Yeah.
And if people don't know about your history with Animorphs, it means they didn't listen to the first episode, and that's really fucking weird.
That's real weird, guys. Like, can I just say though, it has been an absolute joy to listen to the show and like hear everybody else's history and experience with Animorphs and what has what has like paralleled and diverged from mine. Like I still like I feel like I need to like I keep meaning to send a message to Kat being like, hey, you, we gotta talk, we gotta hang out,
seriously.
We gotta talk. I haven't talked to you in a while. Hi Kat, I love you, and it's been a while since we've chatted. Let's just like kiki about Animorphs and how we're both like collector nerds. I mean, this, you
Absolutely.
know, I can't remember whether or not in the first time we talked I told you about the fact that I was, you know, part of all the like almost all the stuff that Kat had. I had. Yes. I had the, you know, I was part of the fan club and the newsletters and the little amulet, you know, that I wore every damn day.
Good.
swore I saw Hork-Bajir while camping and wrote it down in my little secret Animorph secret handbook because it told us to. It's like, if you have any sightings of aliens, tell us when and where. Yeah.
I would love, if I were a gajillionaire, when I have finished all of the books, I would love to just like throw a giant party and fly everyone out to just have like a giant Animorphs hang. That would be like just all of the guests just come here and chill out, and it'll be so fun. So
that would be so much fun.
Everybody give me $1 gajillion, pretty
yes.
much.
Give Will monies so that we can all party.
Yeah. Okay, so before we even jump into chapter 1, we got to talk about this title. So I do not look at the titles of the books before I start reading them, before I like build my notes documents or anything. I just like I have seen them in brief because they're in, like, I've seen the PDFs,
Right.
But I don't like store that information in my head. So I opened this and I was like, now what the fuck could this possibly mean? Because the title of this book is The Android. And like, I understand that these books will throw anything at me. However, I wasn't prepared for the Elemist. And I wasn't prepared for this.
I don't think anybody can be prepared for the Elemist, my dude.
No.
God, what a shit dude. Yeah, I think
shit dude. I fucking hate that guy.
I think that I briefly mentioned to you the word Elemist the word Elemist came up when I was just telling you about like the generally agreed upon order versions to read the other books, and I think I said like Elemist Chronicles. You were like, I have no idea what any of those words mean.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, you will soon.
And in fact,
and welcome to the worst guy.
Welcome to the worst guy. I fucking hate this guy.
I mean, it has nothing to do with this book, but like, oh man.
Not relevant at all.
Not relevant at all, but oh boy, there's so much more that you're going to hate even more.
Oh, I'm sure.
The kernel at the core of the Elemist's whole thing. I'm so excited to watch you get into.
I do think I have a new prediction about the Elemist.
Yes.
I think that whatever the fuck looked at Jake after the Yeerk died in his head from the war crimes that they did to the Yeerk, I think that might be an Elemist's more natural form. Do not say anything, but this is my prediction right now.
Noted.
We'll see. We'll see.
But yes, back to this book.
Yes. So chapter 1, this is a Marco book. I'm so delighted to get back to my baby boy. This is not a tremendously Marco forward book for as Marco as it is. Just because we are introducing so much extremely specific lore that takes a lot of time, which is not a complaint. I really enjoyed having such a lore-heavy book that was focused like through Marco's POV, because his POV is just so fun for me. But just not a terribly Marco forward book, just to put that out there.
I mean, I will say it's a Marco haircut forward book.
That's so true. My poor boy. And in fact, like right off the bat, it is in chapter 1, right, where he's talking about he got a haircut.
It's literally the very first, like it's the very first thing.
Yes.
It's on page 1. He's talking about how cute he is and how girls are going to call him cute even more because he's gotten his hair cut.
Yes.
And his stylist, Charisse, which I'm just like...
Charisse.
I've never heard this name before. Cool. I love it.
It's adorable.
Charisse sounds amazing. Yeah, cuts his hair. So the fact that so much of this book is dedicated to the fact of this character getting a haircut is so funny.
It's so funny.
Because do you know the reason why?
No.
Literally, the kid that had been hired to be the cover model for Marco since book 1 got a haircut. And Scholastic basically came to Catherine and Michael and were like, okay, so like we really want to keep this same kid. He's like a really good model. He's really perfect, but he's gotten a haircut. And his like entire look is going to change. So it becomes like such a major fucking part of the entire like plot of this book, like through like to the middle,
the end, like
through the end. Like, and it's because some kid in like I don't know 1998 got a freaking haircut, and they were like, "Well, I guess."
And like to be clear. This little boy's haircut on this cover is not bad. It's fine. No. But throughout the book, everybody is like, what the fuck did you do?
It's like, did you kill a monkey and sit on it, have it sit on your head? Yeah, that's literally the entire reason why.
That's awesome.
Which is so funny when I consider the fact that, like, because this was a change from what we've seen before, meanwhile, like, blonde Tobias versus the model.
Yeah.
Anyway, the silly little behind the scenes things. It reminds me of when like
amazing.
Sarah Michelle Gellar got a haircut in Buffy, and then it was like, well, and we're gonna make this an entire episode.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's nothing behind the scenes that was nefarious about the way that they kept pointing it out. I'm sure, definitely not.
Yeah,
that fucking guy. So in this chapter, Marco is desperately trying to get Jake to sneak into an outdoors concert with him in Dogmorph. And Jake, being the very good boy he is, does not want to do this because he knows that it would make him a hypocrite because he's always lecturing the others like morphing is not for recreation. That is not what it's for. We need to be safe and careful. And this is like only recreation, right? And I have to talk about the lineup at this concert because it's insane. It is Alanis Morissette, The Offspring, and 9 Inch Nails. What? No, it's not.
It is. Let us put together the most quintessentially like 90s bands that we can pull forth in our reference and smush them together.
Seeing Alanis Morissette and 9 Inch Nails at anything that isn't like maybe Coachella is it's unreal. And I also need to call out Jake here. Now, granted, I am coming to this from a literally lifelong 9 Inch Nails stan. But The Offspring is what he's most into. They also keep calling it Offspring. Their name is definitely The Offspring, which definitely feels like a adults writing a book for kids sort of mistake, which I think is very cute. But the fact that that's what he's excited about, Jake, please, honey.
I mean, listen, as somebody who was like the same age as these kids while the books were coming out, or like maybe a little bit younger, that tracks. Okay. I have very distinct memories of like being in middle school and having like a pool party and blasting The Offspring in our backyard. For some reason, being like a preteen and listening to Offspring was the thing.
I guess that makes sense. And I do think that one of the ways in which I was most consistently a social outcast was in my music taste. So this does make sense. I was over here like, what do you mean you're not listening to Tori Amos?
As I will say though, as a 9 Inch Nails stan, 9 Inch Nails will return in these books in a really delightful way that
amazing.
Will be, I mean, it's like a tiny little thing, but it is a joke that has persisted in the fandom.
Good. Good.
And,
I'm thrilled. I fully believe that if Trent Reznor read these books, he'd be like, oh, huh, okay.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that it's a Cassie related thing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So Jake really wants to go. So basically he's like, you know, if you went and I knew, I would have to go so that I could make sure that you're okay and like buddy system and what have you, if I knew that you were just gonna go no matter what. And so Marco, of course, is like, I'm gonna go no matter what. And Jake is like, oh no, I guess I gotta come with you. It's great. I thought this was just absolutely adorable.
I love that Marco just says like, Jake may be responsible and all, but he's not like a total 40-year-old. And I'm sitting here like, listen, as a near 40-year-old, I resent this statement, Marco. I'm still fun.
Yeah, you're here.
Right.
This 40-year-old is gunning for you, Marco, so choose your words wisely. So chapter 2, they go to an alley. We're getting them to the concert. They go to an alley to get changed and then morph into dogs. Jake is morphing Homer, and Marco has gotten an Irish setter morph because he says that girls love Irish setters. And I have to say, that is so true.
It's really true.
It's really true.
They're so majestic.
I've never met a girl who does not love Irish setters specifically. They're so beautiful.
They're so pretty. It's you know what Irish setters are? Irish setters are the equivalent of a horse to a horse girl, but in dog world.
It's so true.
Like
they're majestic.
The Venn diagram between horse girl and Irish setter girl is a circle.
There's also something about the redheadedness about it, you know? It's like they're sort of ethereal. I feel like when I was growing up, the goal was to be blonde, sure. But a lot of us also had this like dream to have been born like Lindsay Lohan, perfect Parent Trap redheads. And I do feel like that plays into it as well.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think Lindsay Lohan is actually naturally redhead. I realized that like as I was talking, but I don't
know.
Care.
Yeah.
Y'all know what I mean. So this is Marco's first time morphing into a dog, and Jake is like, are you ready for this responsibility to not be driven mad by joy? And Marco was like, I'm definitely ready for that. And Jake was like, cool, okay, let's go. And then Marco is not ready for that whatsoever. He is having a great time. He is playing around. He is having fun. He is getting pet by some hippie girls he saw earlier. He is living the life.
And a hippie guy.
And one hippie guy. That's true.
And one hippie guy. And he talks about how he's talking about how this is like the most joy and pleasure he's ever felt when these two people are scratching him behind the ears. I also really love that we know that they're a hippie couple because he smells patchouli.
Yes. Classic. As they get to the concert, they're like sniffing around and they notice this guy who they used to go to school with, and his name is Eric. And the first thing that I noticed about Eric is that his name is a normal name, but it is spelled the most alien way that you could spell that name. It's E-R-E-K. And I was like, oh, so this is the android, thinking that I was like making a little joke.
Mm.
No.
No. No. It is.
Straight up is. So they snoof him.
I like your note. Is the hippie girl the android?
I was ready to incriminate anyone. A character occurred, and I was like, that's the android. That's the android. But like, luckily for me, pretty much just like 2 characters occur before we get to the actual android. So I wasn't wrong for long.
What would you have done if Trent Reznor was the android?
I would have lost my shit. My brain would have exploded. This would have gone from an obsession to like a disorder for me.
Amazing.
One thing about Eric is that he has no smell, and that's how they know like something is fucking up with this dude. And he's also passing out flyers for the sharing, and we know that's not good. So they're like, well, what the fuck? What the fuck? What is going on here? So they wind up bringing everybody back to the barn just to be like, what the fuck? So they meet back at the barn, tell everybody that Eric smells like nothing. Personally, I don't think that that is how an android would work. I think that they would smell like plastics or metal or a computer.
But
But
I mean, but I think that's probably part of the like. But a dog and a dog's senses wouldn't care about that. You know, it's like
oh,
you know, he may smell of something, like a book smells of something, you know, plastic smells
oh,
of
that's
something,
so
but like
true.
that's not something a dog is interested in. You know,
Right.
they want to smell something that is alive and smelly and, you know, maybe something you can eat or is maybe something dead you could roll in. So, you know,
Yeah.
whether or not it's nothing, something is off, something is wrong. This doesn't smell like anything alive
Yeah, it doesn't smell like a people
and
for
or
sure.
anything dead, honestly, because
Right.
a dog would love that shit.
Yeah. And there's also like we find out that this android is like extremely unbelievably advanced. So maybe they don't have to smell like plastics and shit. Who's to say?
Yeah.
So one thing that I found a little surprising, and maybe this is just Rachel playing devil's advocate in the way that she can sometimes, is she does not believe them. She's like, have you ever considered that maybe he just like showers?
Right.
And she does. The second that Marco got a haircut, I was like, oh no. Oh, Rachel is going to roast him. She's going to drag him to hell. And she does
Oh, yeah.
immediately.
I think she's the one who tells him it looks like a dead monkey on the top of his head.
Yes. So mean. But Marco's kind of not hearing it because he's like, okay, genuinely, like something fucked up is going on, though. And Rachel and Jake both have homework and like things to do, so they wind up going home. So the others, Marco, Cassie, and Tobias, start looking through the phone book for this guy, which is very funny. They're all thinking like, do we do subterfuge? Do we like scout around town looking for him? How do we find him? And Cassie is like, hey, dumbasses, phone book. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. That is frequently Cassie's role. Just, hey, dumbasses.
Yeah. Truly. She is
Read a book once in a while. Like, how are we gonna do this thing? Bats. Echolocation. You crack a book.
Crack a book. She's so smart, and I feel so bad for her that she has to put up with these idiots who are simultaneously overcomplicating things and also not smart enough to like overthink something well.
Yeah. Every group needs one.
Every group needs one. At this point in the book, I was convinced, and I do this every single book. I was like, oh, I know how books work. I know how thematic storytelling works. I can predict the themes of these books based on the conflicts that we encounter early on, because that's how a lot of books work. So I was like, okay, with Marco, are we going to be maybe looking into the brand of escapism that morphing into something provides you? Because Marco is just like, he's had a very rough life. His mom has been on his mind quite a lot. His hot mom.
Hottest mom.
So hot. And I was like, you know, maybe he'll like be dipping too much into dog or into doing Animorph instead of his homework or into doing all of these things instead of these things and like ignoring the root problems that he is dealing with. And summarily, no, that does not happen even a little.
I mean, to an extent, but let's put a pin in that because I have some notes for that a little bit later on.
Ooh,
specifically around the way that Marco falls into some of the morphs in this book and how that specifically ties into the larger themes.
Totally.
But not necessarily in the escapism route.
Ooh, I'm so excited. The morphs in this one are good. We'll get to them. They're good. So, so Jake catches him writing this paper. And this is like not an important moment, but this is one of those moments where like sometimes the fact that books are written by writers who write really comes through in these books.
Absolutely.
So Jake is like, do you have a topic? And Marco is like, what do you mean, do I have a topic? I've written 3 pages.
Yeah.
And Jake is like, okay, so, but do you? And Marco says, a topic will ... emerge. I'm going to just write until I discover a topic. The topic will rise from these pages. It will reveal itself to me. I just have to keep writing. And then Jake recommends...
I've definitely been there writing a paper at 4 a.m. So, mood.
I have a story for you. Jake then recommends that the topic is the use of rhetoric to obscure a lack of content, which is incredible.
I also wrote this down.
Yes, as a former English teacher, had one of my students tried to bullshit me in this way, I absolutely would have entertained it, and were it a good paper, given them marks on it. I would have taken this. 100%.
Yeah. I'm also like, good job, Jake. The use of rhetoric to obscure a lack of content.
Yeah, great.
Beautiful.
Great. We get a little bit more background on Eric the guy before we jump into chapter 5. And Eric was at Marco's hot mom's funeral. And this wasn't like necessarily surprising to Marco at the time because a lot of his classmates showed up, which I thought was very, very sweet. But Marco had noticed that Eric was like a few rows back and he was wearing a suit, as you do for a funeral, and like kids hate wearing suits. But Eric looks fucking pissed the whole funeral. He's like shaking his head like he's disagreeing with what the eulogy. Mm-hmm. And Marco is just like, oh, he must be really uncomfortable in that suit. Like he must be pissed that he has to wear a suit, I guess. But you know, I would say that is not normal funeral behavior, personally.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that immediately sets like alarm bells off in Marco's brain. He's, you know, his like curiosity to what is going on shifts immediately into, all right, Eric, we're going to have to see. We'll see. Mm-hmm. We'll see what's up with you. And he's ready to go.
Yeah, he's smart, this book. Marco is. I mean, I guess he's always kind of smart. He's got levels, you know?
He's like a parfait.
Yes, just like a parfait.
Yeah.
So chapter 5, they're going to start spying on Eric. They figured out who he is using the phone book, and so now they're going to go like observe. So Marco waits until it's the end of school. He goes to the rooftop, changes into his morph suit, morphs into a Boyd. He's an osprey right now, yeah?
Yeah. He and Cassie have the same morph. They're identical ospreys.
Right. Osprey.
Yeah.
Osprey. One of those that I never pronounce right on the first go, but that's okay. He and Tobias are flying around, and Tobias keeps like schooling him on being a bird, basically, especially when a thing that seems like a missile shoots past them. Marco barely dodges, and he's like, what the fuck was that?
Well, the reason he barely dodges is because Tobias is just like talking to him about flying and stuff, and he's like, oh, by the way, you're gonna want to make a sharp left bank in 3, 2, 1. And Marco's like, what? He's like, just do it. Ready? 1, 3, 2, 1, go, do it.
Do it now, or you will be dead.
Yeah.
And this was a peregrine falcon. And Marco is like, what the hell? That came out of nowhere. It was so fast. And Tobias is like, yeah, probably usually look up. Like, usually the danger is up. And you are still learning what to look out for danger when you're a bird. I'm a bird all the time. And Tobias also just kind of talks shit about this falcon. He says, "Shake it off," Tobias advised. "He missed, right? I know that bird. He's not as good as he thinks he is. He's taken a shot at me before. He must be hungry."
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, and also like the moments like this are where I really like get shocked back into reality of how much I fucking love these characters and their relationships, because it's like played off as funny, and then also like just I mean, moments before this in the book, Marco's flying around being like, "Man, thermals are great. This is awesome. There's like nothing like being a bird." And he even says the phrase like, "Tobias's life isn't so bad." And then this happens.
And this is very obviously regularly an occurrence for
right.
Tobias.
Yeah. And you know, he very quickly is, you know, like he's kind of joking about it at first. And then, you know, then when Marco's like really hit by this and he's like, "Yeah, I'll shake it off. Like I'll be shaking for like an hour." You know, Tobias is just like, it literally says, he says dryly, like it's not all just riding thermals.
Yeah.
You know, it's these moments where like he just starkly reminds people of the dangers of his life and snaps people out of the reverie of like, you know, they all know the dangers, but they for the most part think of the dangers as we are part of this war, and don't have the, you know, Tobias doesn't have the luxury to just think about that. Like this is his everyday life. Like, I am a predator, and also I could very easily be eaten by something else, and I have to figure out how to live my life every single day that way.
Yeah, and that's not fun, and it's not comfortable, and it's not chill. It's bad, actually.
Yeah.
So they do see Eric, and he's coming home from school. He's getting off of the bus, and he's being followed by a few other figures. And at first I was like, what's going on? There's something ominous going on. There's something ominous. And then it was just straight up some bullies. And
punks.
And Tobias, being famously a very bullied boy, is like, bullies, my favorite enemy. I think I said on my notes, yeah, I can roll with advantage on this attack.
Let's go.
Let's go. So Marco is like, "Hey, chill." And Tobias is like, "I shan't." And immediately starts attacking the biggest bully.
This gives me very much Never-Ending Story vibes.
Oh, yes. He attacks these bullies, and then like several things happen at once. The bully gets attacked. Eric, panicked by this, runs into a bus.
And that's how Eric King died.
That's how he died. End of book.
That's how Regina George died.
And as he is hit by this bus, he visibly glitches for a moment, where he no longer looks like a dude. He looks like a chrome and milky white android guy. He looks like a robot. And then he glitches back, and my notes say, okay, so that's our android pretty much. Okay. And then bold and italicized, why?
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about your predictions for why this book is called The Android before you started reading.
Oh my god, that's right. I did make predictions. Okay, so here are my predictions. Yeah, before I even started reading, I was like, why the fuck could there possibly be an android here? So here are my predictions. 1, the Andalites send along help, and it's an android.
As if they would ever.
I know. I wrote that, and I was like, that's not going to be it.
I'm so glad you also are real sus of the Andalites. I was waiting. Yeah. I couldn't say anything the last time we recorded.
Right,
and
right. Oh my god, so much has happened.
Yeah, like so much of the central tenet of these books are, hey, so what if like an entire white savior race?
Yeah.
And they are, and we love Axe, our beautiful baby boy, but
we love our boy.
Like that is the Andalites, and they are treated as such.
Yeah, we love our boy who is doing unabashed intergalactic crime against the Andalites.
Yeah. And is working to dismantle some of his own, and his own complexes.
Yeah.
But has still grown up in this supremacy. Anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Oh yeah. So second guess is there's a doppelganger of one of my babies, and twist, it's an android, and they have to do the which one is the real one thing. Also not correct. And then I'm going to skip to my last one because my second to last was right. Kind of.
Yeah.
Last one was Visser 3 is having his non-union laborers build a new weapon against the Bandolites, and it's an android. Not correct. But my guess number 3 was another foreboding alien guy comes to warn them, and it's actually an android. That one's not too far off.
No, absolutely.
I think I get the point that one. I think I get
the point.
I'll give myself a little like ding sound effect. Yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
Beautiful.
So chapter 6, clearly they got to talk to everybody again.
Yeah. Like, hey guys,
something fucked up happened, and we don't know what it means. And Marco is immediately like, okay, well, we got to go talk to Axe, because Axe is going to know.
Yeah.
Axe is going to know.
Axe knows everything.
Yeah. So Tobias flies off to go get Axe, and then Marco goes home to call Jake to assemble everybody. And when he calls Jake's house, Tom picks up. And Tom is like, hey, Marco, how come you haven't been hanging out around here more often? I miss you, little guy. Why don't you come to the sharing? And also your father. You should bring your father. And Marco is like, yeah, I'm actually kind of good. I don't think that sounds great. And Tom is like, oh, okay, that's fine. Could you just send your father then? I think that your father would have like a really cool time with me and my friends, which was a normal thing for a teenager.
Totally normal. I love that there's
situation.
absolutely no small talk. Just like,
yeah.
Hey, Marco, you haven't been around a lot. God, they're all so bad at hiding their shit.
It's so obvious that this idiot is besties with Visser 3.
Right.
God. And Marco obviously is fucking furious about this because they already have his mom. His dad just got back to being like a functional, like healthy adult who is like back to work, and they have a house, and like he just got his fucking dad back after his fucking mom died or whatever. This blows.
Yeah.
And he says, there's this quote where I was just like, God damn, Applegates.
Oh no, I have more. I took a picture of this entire page because I feel like it's really important for us to read the whole thing.
Okay, you go for it then.
Well, so first off, like Tom hands the phone back to Jake, and Marco has completely lost any sense of his surroundings. He is so blinded by this that he starts, literally just telling Jake over the phone, like, I'm gonna fucking kill him, I'm gonna get him, they can't get my dad, blah blah blah. And Jake is just like, shut up. And he like takes several breaths to try to calm down. And
he's telling him to shut up because Tom is
standing right there. Yeah.
Right.
It's like he says, I'm cool. He says, I wasn't cool, but I was under control again. He says, I took a couple of deep breaths, then I took a couple of more. And I think this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier with the ways that the like central theme of the book pops up with foreshadowing a little earlier. I'd take Tom, I'd take Chapman, I'd take every controller I knew of before I'd let them have my father. I had power. Deadly animals lived inside me. Their DNA swam with my own. I could feel the rage flowing through me, the blind, violent rage that became little films in my head. Little head movies of revenge and destruction. I pictured the things I would do to Tom, to Chapman, someday even to Visser 3. I would do terrible things to them. Terrible, violent things. It was a sick feeling. It was sick and I knew it, and yet I ran those images over and over in my head. Rage is addictive, you know. I guess it's sort of like a drug. Anger and hatred get you high. They get you high, but like any addiction, they hollow you out and tear you down and eat you alive.
God damn.
Yeah. And then he says, so I ran the scenes of violence over and over in my head. I rode that rush of fury till at last it burned itself out and left me feeling empty and beaten. And you know, I see in your notes you put the rage is addictive section, but for me, like I want us to focus on that paragraph beforehand where Marco is very specifically talking about the images, the head movies that he is playing over and over in his head of the violence and how significant that is to the end of this book.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
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 Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't even put that together. Oh my God. Yeah, because like we'll get there, but there is like this sense of like living with these images in your head is like a core thing that we keep coming back to. Wow.
Yeah. It's something I wrote a note, you know, a little bit like for a different chapter, but I think it's good to bring it up here is these books have so far at this point dealt really well with the trauma of experiencing violence and having violence visited upon you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a shift that happens where we really start to get into the trauma that enacting violence.
Yeah, I encourage everybody once again to listen to Dan Taberski's The Line and to season 3 of In the Dark, both of which address this head on. I actually think In the Dark has done much more good than The Line has, but I do think that The Line talks about like soldiers as victims a lot more, which I find a very compelling stance. And also, again, it is just wild to be talking about this book, not only after the CEO of United Healthcare was killed, but also, I completely forgot to mention this, we're currently seeing the liberation of Syria after like 13, 14 years, thanks to a rebel insurgency that is having to enact violence to free their people from a horrific regime, you know, like
and at the same time staring down potential invasion by Israel.
Right. As we watch the atrocities and genocide that Israel has been committing against Palestine for much longer than most people think. Yeah. Oh my God, let's go back to this book.
Woof. All right, so they meet up in the woods.
Classic Animorphs, classic Nevermorphed episode. Will talking about war crimes.
I mean, there's a reason why I told you to read these damn books.
You were right.
Everybody's like, oh, the fun animal books where the kids turn into animals. You're like, oh, you mean the story about forever traumatized child soldiers? Cool.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah.
Nevermorphed is hosted, edited, and produced by Will Williams. Our theme music is The Chase by Joey Hendricks. Our title is by Eddie Feely, and this podcast would not exist without Mike Schubert's podcast, Potterless and the Newest Olympian. You can find his works at shub.es, that's shub.es. Nevermorphed is a proud member of Hug House Productions. You can find more at hughouse.productions and follow us on Tumblr at Nevermorphed. Get morphin'! On March 27th, 2024, Elon Musk was deposed in a libel lawsuit filed by Ben Brody. Musk's lawyer, Alex Spiro, tried to retroactively mark the deposition as confidential, but it wasn't.
Of course I can ask him, do you think you committed actual malice? Do you think you were reckless? Of course I can ask those questions.
The deposition is a new Hug House podcast reenactment of the entire deposition, word by word, in full, taken very seriously.
Things that he did wrong.
But that's the point. That's not what you're allowed.
Until he really just can't anymore.
you're allowed to do in the deposition. You can't just get him talking.
The deposition drops on the 4th of July, 2024, with 4 weekly episodes. Subscribe on your podcatcher of choice or find us at hughouse.productions today.